Welcome back to DSP Leaders World Forum. It's Tuesday, the 12th of May, and coming up now is our final session of the day, covering the evolution of customer services. Before we start, a quick reminder that if you want to ask questions later or join the Extra Shot with Ray LeMaitre programs, then get in touch with us as soon as possible. Do it today if you possibly can. And details are on TelecomTV along with our latest poll question. And so to our panel, the evolution of customer services. How can a service provider gain market advantage if the same technology and solutions are available at similar prices from multiple competitors? There's an increasing realization that CSPs need to be smarter with more personal and focused customer interactions, embracing trends such as experiential marketing, for instance. At the same time, there is growing pressure, and quite rightly so, to ensure that services are inclusive and available to all, leaving no part of society disadvantaged. Time now to meet our guests, and I'm delighted to introduce Mariusz Gaca, who is Vice President Consumer Market at Orange Poland, Dan Ford, SVP and GM Communications at Vlocity, and Marianne Waite, who is Inclusive Brand Director for the Valuable 500. Welcome to the three of you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Hello.
Mariusz, I'd like to start with yourself and Orange Poland. Can you tell us a bit more about what Orange Poland has done with Orange Flex? Because it's different from what Orange previously offered its customers, isn't it?
Yes, Guy, indeed. This is something completely different. Maybe before I start explaining you what Orange Flex is about, I will just give you a little bit of the history, how we telco operators are trying to deal with online and internet sales. So for years, we have been trying to put our main products into the web in order to get additional distribution channel. But in fact, what we were doing, we're trying to get what was developed in legacy systems, and we're trying to sell it through online channels. In fact, it was not very much real time. It was not the digital customer experience. And some time ago, we started to think, okay, shall we be thinking about something different? Shall we develop a new product, which will be still a telco product, but will to some extent answer the need of the customers to be more and more digital with all the services around. And this is how Orange Flex was actually created. And what is Flex? Flex actually, it's a mobile subscription, so very traditional one. It's voice, SMS, MMS, and data. But this is not only available in digital channels, but it's also a real-time application that is actually responding to the customer requests immediately. And what is also important, this is the product that actually you can download as an application from Apple Store or from Google Play. And you can go through the process of onboarding fully digital, including the photo of your ID. And then you can download the eSIM once it's available on your smartphone. And actually your service is ready to be used. So this is not only the online distribution channel. This is a real-time service that we know from the past, but this is completely designed from the scratch to be fitted into the digital world and digital customer experience.
So this really changes how you engage with your customers.
Oh, yes, definitely. I mean, that's very interesting because when we are comparing our customers from legacy, from the past, we still have millions of such customers in this company here, with those customers that we have onboarded already on Orange Flex. These are actually customers that usually telco operators are dreaming of. So these are younger people. These are people that are fully digital. These are people that are buying online and paying online. By the way, there is no other option to pay for Orange Flex than to use your credit card or a smart local top-up that is provided by the bank. So actually, this is 100% online. These are customers that actually are using 4 times more data comparing to legacy customers. These are customers that are, I guess, in 50% Netflix users, more than 50% Spotify users. These are customers that are very familiar with all the solutions that are around us, coming from different service providers. And these are also customers, and I must tell you that within the COVID times, we experienced that are eagerly engaging in different CSR actions. Just to give you the example, in Orange Flex, you can donate your gigabytes that are at your account to any charity purpose. And we propose to those customers that they can donate unused gigabytes of data allowance. And if a certain amount of gigabytes are collected, we will equip 1,000 schools with the internet connection. And imagine it took them 24 hours to donate enough gigabytes to buy those modems and to deliver them to schools. So this is the profile of the customers, as we used to describe them, customers of the future.
Very impressive. We should come back to some of the innovative ways we're adapting services at the moment. But for now, Dan, Vlocity. Vlocity is being acquired by Salesforce, one of the world's leading software as a service companies. How will you and how do you enable service providers to better engage and understand their customers?
Yes, so Vlocity is a fast-growing software company co-located here in San Francisco with Salesforce. And over the last 6 years, we've been Salesforce's strategic partner for the communications industry. And so what we do is we complement Salesforce with industry-specific business processes and integrations and applications like enterprise product catalog and configure price quote and digital commerce and order management. And we've got several dozen customers like Orange Poland that use our software with Salesforce to deliver seamless customer journeys, to help to guide customers through the sales process and the ordering process and the service process, really through the channel of their choice. And so, as you mentioned, we're in the process of being acquired by Salesforce, and we're thrilled about joining a great company that is dedicated not only to serving its customers, but also doing good in the broader society.
Thanks, Dan. Marianne, for those of us who don't know so much about the Valuable 500, can you explain a little bit about your aims and intentions and how you can influence telcos and their service evolution?
Yes, absolutely. So the Valuable 500 is the world's first global collective of CEOs coming together to champion the needs of vulnerable consumers or disabled people and older people as well. So it's great that we're working very hard to meet the needs of our digital natives and the new wave of consumers. But what we're trying to remind businesses about is those edge case users who so frequently get forgotten and the huge economic, business and social value that they're able to bring to the table. So what we're trying to do is bring together 500 CEOs across the world who see the value of disabled people and older people. There's a huge market there. It's collectively $8 trillion for those of us who aren't familiar with the business case. So it's an emerging market the size of China. And together with friends and family members, disability touches 53% of people. So what we're trying to do is not just enable CEOs and leaders to think about this from a nice to do from a CSR perspective, but also to see the business imperative of removing barriers for people across the entire brand experience. From hiring disabled talent to making sure that you have those edge case users feeding into research and development, but also thinking about the customer perspective as well and how you are externalizing your business and delivering against your brand purpose in a way that truly delivers growth for everybody.
Marianne, when you refer to those numbers and compare them with the market the size of China, it's quite startling. I think that the size of this market, and as you say, it's an opportunity for service providers. Mariusz, can I ask you about when you introduced Orange Flex? You were talking about the digital natives and customers who are very used to Netflix and those types of services. Are you seeing take up from a wide age range and a demographic range with Orange Flex, or is it still maybe focused and down towards the younger age range?
Yes, I would say that there are two lessons learned. First is that we thought in the beginning it would be a service more for people around 20 years old, while in matter of fact, majority of Flex users are closer to 30 or 35 years old, which is pretty interesting. Although the group of young people is very much represented there, much more than in our legacy base, I would say vast majority, these are people between 30 and 35.
Thanks. Let's broaden this out and look at the big picture. Dan, the industry has been stuck in selling connections for a very long time. It's selling SIMs, selling airtime, selling connectivity. As connectivity commoditizes, there is this need to break free of the old model, to prevent a race to the bottom on just competing on price. How do we as an industry break free of this model, and how can we encourage CSPs or give them the tools to do more?
I really think that what service providers need to do is to fundamentally re-establish trust with their customers. First of all, that's by simplifying their processes, eliminating any hidden fees that you might have. Just make it fundamentally easier to do business with. Secondly, is to enable your customers to interact with you through their channel of choice, whether that may be mobile or social or through traditional channels. And then thirdly is, wherever possible, leverage insight to how your customers are using your services and are interacting with you, and to use that insight to streamline their experience. And be helpful and be generous with your customers. And I think by doing these things, operators can reset their experience with their customers and put themselves in a position to expand those relationships and make them more profitable.
Mariusz, picking up from what Dan's just said there about engaging with customers, there was a time when we'd only really talk to customers at the end of contracts, or customers would call us if there was a problem with their service. Is there a recognition now that we've got to engage at different stages and more stages, and basically be a partner to our customers?
Yeah, I fully agree with what Dan said. Maybe I will start from the fact that Orange Flex, this is the kind of the offer when there is no commitment. So previously and still in legacy, we're selling our services with predominantly 24 months contracts. And this is like you said, so we are usually contacting the customer 90 days before the end of period, which is the end of contract, trying to retain them and probably to make an upsell. There are, of course, some attempts to make an upsell on customers in a regular way, mainly through telesales out and through direct marketing activities. But to be honest, this is very old-fashioned when I compare it to what we do with Orange Flex. So in Flex, we first of all, we said to the customer, look, this is going to be a very simple offer. This is going to be a very fair customer experience. This is going to be a contract that actually you will see on your smartphone, and there will be no surprises after a month, after 2 months, or after 21 months, as it usually is in the legacy. And that's very interesting, because one of the main idea when we were designing the marketing concept for Orange Flex was that we will not spoil that with some practices that operators used to do because of many reasons in the past. So everything will be very transparent towards the customer, and we will ask the customer for the feedback. Just to give you the example, when we were designing the onboarding process, for example, but not only, we had 6 groups of customers, real customers, located in different cities around the country. And we were coming to them and showing them how the screen could look like. We were asking them, what do they think? Do they like those icons? Do they like those colors? What would they change? Is there anything they do not understand? Is there anything that they are afraid of looking at the onboarding process? And each time the feedback was given to us, we were coming back and we were redesigning the process. So at the end of the day, we came to the market with something that was already tested, designed actually with the customer. Although we experienced some feedbacks from real customers after, when the product was live, that there are still some things that needs to be corrected. And this is something that we are doing actually in a very agile mode. Every 2-3 weeks, we are able to change a feature. We are able to change, to add some new functionality. But each time we are doing that, we are not only based on our surveys or some focus group interviews with some customers being locked in the room. We ask customers of the service, as time goes, there are more and more customers, what would they think about this and that change, and would it make this service better for them? Would they like it? Or is it something that they would eventually be able to pay for? So with such a concept, marketing concept, and with such a tools that we have right now, this is very much feasible. You need to know that in legacy systems, big operators like us who are incumbent in this country, it takes like 7 months up to 9 months to introduce a feature. With Orange Plex, we are able to introduce a feature, and I'm not talking about just something little, but I'm talking about big features every 3 weeks. And this is also something that, is a great opportunity to go to the customer, to ask him, and to eventually correct if there is a wrong feedback or if the feedback is not as we expected after another 3 weeks. So I must admit that this is we've been watching at different service providers, and I think Apple was one of them. Netflix was another one. When you take a look at Netflix, what they do, comparing to linear television, they are selling TV, or they are selling movies or content more broadly. But in matter of fact, what is a big change is the way they sell it. And actually, when we were designing Orange Flex, we were thinking how to sell the content which we produce, which is mainly connectivity, the way that people will experience better than what we used to do, and that they will feel it as more fair. And I think with Orange Flex, this is something that was in the very beginning of designing this product, and it's still with us.
Thank you. Marianne, is it possible to create a fully inclusive service, or are we really producing services for, I hate to say, a majority, and then producing variants that are more accessible?
So the best case scenarios would be that you would have a brand that builds an experience in the most inclusive way possible, in a very mainstream way. So, for instance, Apple, if you ask disabled consumers what their favorite brand is, they will say Apple, because they embed simplicity, as Dan was saying, into the heart of what they do. And they take insights from as many different users as possible in order to remove barriers, promote simplicity, and promote personalization. So ideally, you would have a brand purpose. Vodafone's very good, by the way, with this. They have a brand purpose that shows that they have this ambition that they want to meet the needs of as many people as possible. And they understand that disability is a big part of that. So you wouldn't necessarily have your core brand offering and then a separate consumer offering for people with disabilities. What you would try to do is develop your service in a way that is inclusive of as many people as possible. Now, it's really hard to try and include every single need within that, but the ambition has to be there that you will at least try and consider the needs of as many people. So, I mean, for instance, look at Netflix. Netflix is so good in terms of representation and in terms of captioning, but that captioning of content isn't just useful for people that have got hearing impairments. It's also useful in terms of transcending language barriers. So this is really about taking that insight, taking edge case users' insights, and figuring out how you can innovate to benefit everyone and to create a more simplified and easy and accessible brand experience for all consumers.
Thanks very much. Dan, the industry's been talking about how we evolve our services for years and years and years. Is it fair to say that perhaps a lot of telcos are just not practicing what they preach, and that they need to catch up in the way that Orange Poland has been doing?
Yeah, I would agree. As I was listening to Mariusz and Marianne, I was reminded of a book that was published probably about a decade ago by a gentleman by the name of Matthew Dixon. And this book was called The Effortless Experience. And the author and the group that wrote this book were testing the hypothesis. And what they found was that it's not heroic customer service. It's not clever pricing or marketing campaigns that really engender customer loyalty. What the research suggests is that organizations that really look hard at a customer's experience, at their journey as they're using the application or the service, and they're proactively looking for areas where things could go wrong, or where customers would have questions, or they kind of hit the wall, and to really proactively think through those customer journeys and to remove obstacles to using the service and accomplishing what they're trying to accomplish. And I think the main lesson from this that for instance, that truly put the customers first and they're experienced can deliver a differentiated experience and really build loyalty over time.
Can I come on to talking about the situation we find ourselves in now with the terrible pandemic that's around the world? Has this period caused us to look more closely at the services we offer, both in terms of the extent we offer these services, the types of services, and also ensuring that no one gets left behind? Mariusz, perhaps I can ask you first, because you've already talked to us about the school project at Orange.
Yeah, actually, these are quite interesting times from my perspective. So maybe a broader comment is that what I clearly see being more resilient is fixed broadband sales or fixed broadband services. And definitely there is a need of customers being basically locked down at their homes to have an access to good internet connection. Probably mobile postpaid, the legacy one, the regular one, is the one that is impacted a lot, probably much more than fixed broadband. And this is also due to the fact that some shops in the majority of countries are completely closed. We just opened 50% of our network just yesterday. Actually, it was closed for 6 weeks from mid-March till end of April. And but Plex, which is no surprise probably, is really getting great sales results because you can subscribe to the service completely online. So customers that probably might not have enough time in the past to go through the service, they have now much more time being online. It's like, it's a must now to be online, and they are trying the service. And by the way, just answering directly your question, we were approached by the Deputy Prime Minister, all the operators in Poland, in order to prepare an offer for teachers and students and pupils, because they have to go to school online now, and not all of them are equipped in broadband connectivity or mobile connectivity that is abundant enough to be at school for 6-7 hours every day. And we were able to respond to this request in, I guess, 72 hours. And we developed a special offer that was called EduFlex. And actually, by simply checking if you are a teacher or a pupil or a student, nothing sophisticated actually, because we wanted the service to be promoted amongst this group of potential users, we developed an offer of giving them 200 gigs for 2 months, actually for free. And this is probably the best example I had in mind from my own experience, from my own company, that is suitable to the situation we are right now.
Marianne, never have we really relied so much on digital, and it's really brought home the reliance we're placing on digital services now. And the last thing we want is for vulnerable parts of the society to be excluded. How are you thinking we're performing, as an industry? Are we meeting the challenge?
Well, I think there are so many different things to take into account, but one of the things that's been fascinating is the fact that we are all experiencing temporary disability. We're all experiencing what it means to live an inaccessible life at the moment. So those businesses that have previously championed accessibility are the ones that are doing the best. There was a really interesting report that came out last year called the Clickaway Pound Report that estimated that the UK alone, businesses in the UK are missing out on £17 billion worth of revenue from websites that are inaccessible. So we talked a little bit about brand experiences earlier on. What's been really fascinating is lots of people want fabulous brand experiences that make the news and that make great PR stories. But what we've really found in this time dealing with COVID-19 is that those best experiences are simply the ones that work for everyone. So it's certainly a period to stop and think about, how can we make sure that we are now working to remove those barriers? Is it going to ensure that people are now starting to prioritize accessibility? And we really hope that that is the case, because the temptation in these times is to drop the parts of business that we think are perhaps less relevant. And sadly, disability and accessibility usually is not high up on leaders' radars. But I think this has drawn attention to the importance of doing so and of meeting the needs of vulnerable people. And what's fascinating is you look at very simple interactions that are hard for certain people within our society. So I've had to relocate down to Dorset, but I live in London and I have an elderly neighbour. She's 90 years old and she's almost totally deaf, but she can't use the telephone. So it's interesting that I can Skype my friends in South Africa and in America and see how they're doing, but I can't call my neighbour a few hundred miles away to check in on her. So it's thinking about who within our society is being left behind, especially in these times of uncertainty. And although there's wonderful stuff happening in terms of innovation and global connectivity and limitless possibilities, I know that at Mobile World Congress, limitless possibilities was a big thing, but actually there is still so much in the way of limitation for people who have basic communication requirements. So yes, brilliant stuff is happening, but there's also still a lot of work to be done.
Dan, the spotlight is on our industry at the moment, on services and connectivity. Are we meeting the challenge?
I think by and large, the communications industry has done well through the current COVID crisis. We've seen a number of service providers like Orange Poland in very short order using cloud technology respond to the need. And to reach out to people who are really impacted by this crisis. And I think we're also seeing more operators respond to the need to be more inclusive and supportive of the broader community. And right before this webcast, I was just looking and learning more about Marianne's organization, the Valuable 500. And I was very pleased to see that both Salesforce, Vlocity, and Orange are members of this prestigious group dedicated to inclusivity and supporting vulnerable communities.
Indeed, and it's more please, and it's good that we all recognise the need to do more. Can I ask each of you a final question before we leave the session? And that is, hopefully, once our current situation is resolved and we get back to whatever the normal becomes, how can we as an industry collectively do better? What areas do we need to focus more on in terms of how we engage and interact with our customers? Are there any areas that we can immediately identify or that have arisen quite recently that we need to focus on? Dan, can I start with you?
So again, a recurring theme from our discussion really been about the importance of putting customer experience first and really putting customer interest first. And so what we expect to see in this post-COVID world is more operators learning from this experience, launching simplified experiences to their customers through mobile, through digital, and to better address customers' needs for connectivity and simplicity.
Great. And Mariusz, you've explained in detail about what Orange is doing with Orange Flex. Where do you hope to and how do you hope to evolve this? How do you intend to do even better with the engagement of your customers?
Well, I think that, and in fact, I read it in some reports. I read a lot of reports recently about the past, the now, and the future. What I agree is that consumers in the future, so in the post-COVID times, will more and more appreciate brands that were behaving properly, if I may say, during this period of time, which was very difficult. And I think that this is very much valid for telco operators. From different benchmarks that I've seen, almost in each and every country, operators were trying to do something additional, an extra mile for customers, either giving additional gigabytes packages or increasing the speed, the bandwidth of fiber connection, or giving some additional uncoded TV channels, and or just postponing for seniors, like we did, the payment due time, because we didn't want seniors to go to our shops to pay the bills, because this is still something very popular. So I think that we all immediately realized that there is something we basically need to do for our consumers, for our societies around in terms of connectivity, because connectivity is very important, and it's even more important during such difficult times like lockdown. So that's point number one. Point number two, I believe that all digital brands, all remote channels, but broadly digital concepts will accelerate now. First, because people that were not very much convinced in the past, they had no other choice than use them now. So they can be convinced because they have to live with that for quite a long time already now. And I believe that this digital insight or digital flavor in service providers' portfolio will become much more important after than it was before. Because for my industry, for example, being online was like, yeah, we got to be there because everybody is there. We have shops, we have telesales in, telesales out. What about online? We have to increase online, but we want to talk to our customers. They want to touch the stuff. Now we see that this is not only to be online. I think people will force us to be more and more digital. And this acceleration, well, if I was to guess, this 6 weeks or 8 weeks of COVID, depending which country you live in, it's like, 2 years acceleration for what will come after. And I think that those operators that will be prepared for that will win something. And I tell you, this is not easy to develop digital offer like Orange Flex. You need a lot of time and lots of efforts and investment in order to have it. But I believe that we are going to accelerate there.
Thank you. And Marianne, what would you like to see the telecoms industry focus on as it continues its own digital transformation, its move to more digital-first offerings, and continuing to evolve its customer services?
Well, we'd like to see providers invest more in disabled consumers and in disabled insights. So now's a great time to start asking people what their experience is and feeding those insights into the business and innovation pipeline. So the other thing I was going to say is we want to see more leaders helping to spread the word internally. We have our mantra at the Valuable 500, which is disability is your business. Quite often within organisations, departments don't necessarily see accessibility as part of their remit. They think it's probably one of their other teams that should be dealing with it. So what we want to do is see leaders and businesses invest more heavily in expanding accessibility training and accessibility understanding throughout different areas of the business to make sure that it's embedded within the business in the same way that sustainability is. So it's really about bringing accessibility to the front of everyone's mind in order to build a world that works for everyone.
Great. Well, Dan, Mariusz and Marianne, thank you all very much indeed for joining us on the programme today.
Thank you.
And if you have any questions for our guests or any additional comments or views you wish to add, then please do get in touch with us. And if you want to be part of the ongoing conversation, then you need to join us on our new discussion programme, Extra Shot, with TelecomTV's editorial director, Ray Lemaitre. Get in touch with us right now through social media or email. Otherwise, please take a look at the sessions that we've already held. They are all available for on-demand viewing now right here on TelecomTV, and we'll be adding future videos to the archive as the week continues. Coming up next on DSP Leaders World Forum 2020 is our session on digital services, markets and business models. You'll be able to watch that first thing tomorrow from 8 a.m. UK time. But for now, a final thank you to our panelists and to you for watching. Goodbye.